You think she's just not in the mood. Maybe she's tired. Maybe it's stress. Maybe this is just what happens in long-term relationships. But if you're being honest with yourself, it didn't disappear overnight. It faded, slowly, quietly. And now you're stuck in that uncomfortable space where you want her, but she doesn't seem to feel the same urgency for you anymore. And here's the part most men get wrong. They think the problem is sex. So they try to fix sex. They talk about it. They negotiate it. They ask what's wrong. And without realizing it, they turn desire into pressure. And pressure is the fastest way to kill attraction. So let me be very clear with you. When a woman stops wanting you, it's rarely about sex itself. It's about how she feels around you now compared to how she used to. If you've ever felt that shift, hit like and subscribe. Not for me, but because what I'm about to break down might be the difference between slowly losing her and understanding exactly how to shift the dynamic back in your favor. Let's get into what's really happening here. I want you to let go of one belief before we go any further. The idea that sex disappears because of time. You've heard it before. That it's normal. That long-term relationships lose their edge. That things just settle down. It sounds comforting, doesn't it? It gives you something to blame that's out of your control. But it's not true. Not in the way you think. Time doesn't kill attraction. What changes over time is the dynamic between two people. And that dynamic is what either feeds desire or slowly suffocates it. Think back to the beginning. Not just what you did, but how you felt. You were sharper, more aware, slightly unpredictable. There was tension in the air because nothing was fully secured yet. She didn't have you completely figured out. And because of that, she leaned in. She paid attention. She felt something. Now look at where you are. Your presence hasn't disappeared. If anything, you're more consistent, more available, more stable. But here's the problem. Consistency turned into predictability, and predictability turned into emotional flatness. You show up the same way every time, same tone, same reactions, same energy. There's no edge left to you, no contrast, no curiosity. And here's the truth most men don't want to hear. Comfort builds attachment, but it does not build desire. When a woman feels completely certain about you, when she knows exactly how you'll respond, exactly how available you are, exactly how much effort you'll give, she stops reaching for you. And desire is built in that reaching. The moment she no longer feels the need to lean in is the moment attraction starts to fade. You didn't lose her because time passed. You lost the version of yourself she once felt something for. Now let's go one layer deeper, because this is where most men completely misread the situation. You think being stable, consistent, always there, makes you more attractive. You think it makes you the safe choice, the reliable man she can depend on. And you're right about one thing. It does make you safe. But safe is not what creates desire. Desire lives in uncertainty, not chaos, not games, but a subtle sense that you are not fully predictable, that there is still something about you she hasn't completely locked down. In the beginning, she didn't know exactly how you felt at every moment. She had to read you, interpret you. There was space between interactions. There was a question in her mind. And that question created tension. Now, she knows you'll text. She knows you'll show up. She knows you'll say yes. She knows you'll stay. There's nothing left to figure out. And when there's nothing left to figure out, there's nothing left to chase. Let me give you a simple scenario. You call her. She doesn't pick up. A few years ago, you might have gone on with your day. Maybe responded later. Maybe not made it a big deal. Now, you call again. You text. You follow up. You make your presence known. Not because you're confident, but because you're afraid of losing connection. and she feels that. She doesn't analyze it consciously, but emotionally, she registers something very clearly. You are available, fully, completely, instantly. And the more available you become, the less she feels the need to move toward you. This is the part that stings. The moment she stops wondering about you is the moment she stops wanting you. Because attraction isn't built on certainty, it's built on emotional tension, on space, on the feeling that there is still something to discover. And when you remove all of that in the name of being a good partner, you don't strengthen attraction. You quietly erase it. But if you think predictability is the biggest problem, it's not. There's something worse, something quieter, and far more destructive: emotional flatlining. This is the phase where nothing is technically wrong, but nothing feels alive either. Your conversations are fine, your routines are stable, there's no major conflict, no drama, no tension. On the surface, it looks like a healthy relationship. But underneath, there's no emotional movement, no teasing, no pushback, no moments where she feels something sharp, unexpected, or intense. Everything is smooth, controlled, neutral. And that neutrality is exactly what's killing your attraction. A lot of men make this mistake without realizing it. They think removing friction will protect the relationship. They think being agreeable, easygoing, and always understanding will make things better. So they filter themselves. They hold back opinions. They avoid disagreement. They stop expressing anything that might create tension. And slowly, they disappear. Not physically, but emotionally. You become predictable not just in your actions, but in your emotional tone. She knows exactly how every interaction will feel before it even happens. There's no contrast, no edge, no spark. And here's what you need to understand. Attraction feeds on contrast. It needs light and dark, push and pull, playfulness and seriousness, agreement and disagreement. That contrast creates energy, and that energy is what fuels desire. When everything becomes flat, when every interaction feels the same, the relationship shifts into autopilot. You talk, you exist together, you go through routines, but she doesn't feel you anymore. And when she stops feeling you, she stops responding to you. Sex isn't disappearing randomly. It's disappearing because the emotional conditions that create it are gone. No emotional movement means no sexual energy. And at this point, most men panic because they sense something is off. But instead of fixing the dynamic, they start trying harder. So, what do you do when you feel her pulling back? You try to fix it. You become more attentive, more understanding, more accommodating. You start doing more for her. You listen better. You show up more. You try to be the perfect partner. And in your mind, it makes sense. If I give more, she'll want me more. But what actually happens is the exact opposite. You don't become more attractive. You become easier to have. And the easier you are to have, the less she feels the need to reach for you. This is where a lot of men lose themselves without even realizing it. You start shaping your behavior around her reactions. You adjust your tone, your timing, your energy, all to maintain connection. But in doing that, you slowly remove the very thing that made you attractive in the first place. Your edge, your independence, your emotional range. Instead of being a man she experiences, you become a man who reacts. And women don't feel desire for men who revolve around them. They feel desire for men who have gravity of their own. Let me make this uncomfortable for you. When she senses that your focus is on getting her to want you, she stops wanting you, because now the dynamic has shifted. You're no longer the source of emotional impact. You're the one seeking it. And that shift is everything. It turns attraction into reassurance. It turns desire into validation. And once you're in that position, every move you make comes from need, even if you try to hide it. You think you're being better. She feels you becoming weaker. You think you're building the relationship. She feels you becoming predictable, safe, and emotionally easy. You didn't improve your value. You lowered the tension that created it. And once that tension is gone, no amount of effort can replace it. And then comes the moment where you decide to talk about it. You've been patient, you've been understanding, but now it's obvious something is off. The intimacy is gone, and it's starting to bother you. So you bring it up. We never have sex anymore. What's going on? I feel like you're not attracted to me. Is there something wrong? On the surface, that sounds reasonable, honest, direct. But let me show you what actually happens in that moment. You think you're expressing a concern. She feels like she's being evaluated. The second you frame it around sex, you put a spotlight on her behavior. Now she's not experiencing you emotionally anymore. She's analyzing herself. She's thinking, why am I not feeling this? What's wrong with me? Am I failing him? And the moment desire starts to feel like something she has to justify or fix, it shuts down. Because desire doesn't respond to pressure. It doesn't respond to logic. It doesn't respond to being questioned. It disappears. Let's go one level deeper. What you say is, we're not having enough sex. What she hears is, you're responsible for how I feel. You need to change so I feel better. Even if you don't mean it that way, that's how it lands. And now the dynamic shifts again. From attraction to obligation. From desire to duty. And once sex becomes something she feels like she should do instead of something she wants to do, you've already lost it, because nobody desires what feels like a task. And now you're stuck in a loop that most men don't even realize they're creating. You bring it up. She pulls back slightly. You feel that distance, so you try again. Maybe softer this time, maybe more patient. Maybe you explain it better. But she pulls back even more. And before you understand what's happening, every conversation about it is making things worse. This is the cycle. Rejection creates insecurity. Insecurity creates pressure. Pressure kills attraction. And the loss of attraction creates more rejection. Over and over again. And here's the part you need to accept, even if it's uncomfortable. You cannot talk someone into wanting you. You can't explain your way into desire. You can't negotiate chemistry. You can't logically convince a woman to feel something she doesn't feel. Attraction is not a rational process. It's emotional. It's instinctive. It's responsive to how she experiences you, not what you say to her. So every time you try to fix this through conversation, you're reinforcing the wrong dynamic. You're telling her, without saying it directly, that this is something she needs to solve for you, and that pressure changes how she sees you. You're no longer the man she responds to. You're the man who needs something from her. And that shift is subtle, but it's fatal, because desire flows toward strength, not toward need. So let me reframe this for you. This is not a sex problem. This is an emotional experience problem. The way she feels around you has changed, and until that changes back, nothing else will. Not more talking, not more effort. Not more patience. You don't fix desire by discussing it. You fix desire by becoming someone she feels something for again. So what do you actually do? Not talk more, not try harder, not swing to the other extreme and suddenly act cold or distant. That's not control. That's reaction. And reaction is still weakness. What you need is a shift, a controlled, intentional change in how you show up. Not for her, but for yourself. Because the moment you make this about getting her back, you're already back in the same trap. It starts here. You stop performing, and you return to yourself. Right now, your focus is on her. What she feels, what she's doing, why she's pulling away. And that focus is exactly what's draining your presence. So you pull it back. You rebuild structure in your life, your routine, your priorities. You move like a man with direction again. Not loudly, not to prove a point, quietly. and she will feel that shift before she understands it. Next, you reintroduce uncertainty, not by playing games, not by acting inconsistent, but by removing the predictability that made you easy to ignore. You don't respond the same way every time. You don't make yourself instantly available. You allow space to exist again. You allow her to feel that she doesn't fully have access to you at all times. And that space creates tension. Then you bring back your edge. And this is where most men hesitate. You've been conditioned to think that being agreeable keeps the relationship stable, so you avoid disagreement. You filter your opinions. You try to keep everything smooth, but smooth is exactly what made you forgettable. You start teasing again, light, playful, but real. You push back when you disagree. You express yourself without constantly managing her reaction. You stop trying to be easy, and you start being real. And when you do that, something shifts. She starts to feel you again, not just as a stable presence, but as a man with personality, boundaries, and emotional range. Then you rebuild your life outside of her, your work, your fitness, your social circle, your interests. Not as a tactic, but as a necessity. Because the more complete your life is without her, the less you need from her. And paradoxically, the less you need, the more attractive you become. Finally, you let her come to you. And this is where most men fail. Because after you change, there will be a moment where nothing happens. No immediate shift, no sudden desire. And that silence makes you panic. So you go back to chasing. That's the mistake. Attraction rebuilds quietly, subtly. She might start engaging more, asking questions, testing your availability. Your job is not to overreact. Your job is to stay consistent in your new energy. Because the moment you jump at the first sign of interest, you collapse right back into the old dynamic. And she feels that instantly. She doesn't come back because you asked. She comes back because she feels something again. Now there's one last thing you need to be honest about. Not every situation can be fixed. There's a difference between a dry phase and a dead dynamic. A dry phase still has warmth. There's still effort. There's still some level of emotional connection underneath the surface. Life gets in the way. Stress, routines, external pressure. But the core is still alive. A dead dynamic feels different. Conversations feel forced. Physical touch feels mechanical. Or avoided completely. You're not being responded to anymore. You're being tolerated. And if you've made real changes, if you've shifted your energy, rebuilt your presence, stepped out of need, and nothing changes on her end, then the problem is no longer the dynamic. It's the compatibility. And this is where most men lie to themselves. They keep asking, what else can I do? When the real question is, what am I staying for? Because at some point, staying in a situation where you are no longer desired is not loyalty. It's self-betrayal. So let's bring this back to something simple and uncomfortable. Sex didn't disappear because time passed. It disappeared because the way she experiences you has changed. You became predictable. You removed tension. You started trying to secure something that was never meant to be secured through effort alone. And without realizing it, you turned attraction into comfort. Now listen carefully. You don't fix this by asking for more intimacy. You don't fix this by explaining how you feel. And you definitely don't fix this by trying harder. You fix this by changing how you show up, by rebuilding your presence, by bringing back emotional movement, by becoming someone she feels again, not someone she simply has. And that requires something most men avoid: letting go of control over her and taking full control over yourself. Because the moment you stop chasing her desire and start rebuilding your own gravity, is the moment she either starts moving toward you again or reveals that she never will. And both outcomes give you clarity. If this hit you in a way you didn't expect, I want you to do something simple. Like the video, so more men stop making this mistake. Drop the word reset in the comments if you know it's time to change how you show up. And subscribe if you're ready to understand the game at a level most men never reach. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it.